Very good afternoon. We're the last keynote panel. I think our job is to sort of keep everybody engaged before the tea. Through last day and a half, we have been talking about innovation. We have been talking about defining a global charter. We have been talking about transformation. We have been talking about pivot to the future. And plan as much we. As the saying goes, that no plan survives contact with enemy. I think that's true for business plans also. So we are definitely talking about uncertainty, right? Add to that COVID, not one wave, 3 waves. Add to that, wars and now recession. We're talking about extreme uncertainty. And that's what ends up requiring us in terms of, trying to figure out how to deal with it, right? As individuals, as team leaders, and what those responses are. And what we are hoping to do today is to sort of, bring about those experiences and those learnings from all of you here for the audience and for each other to sort of maybe take away today. I'll maybe, Ashish, start with you, right? And it would be, remiss not to talk about COVID. So 2020, COVID hits. What was your first reaction? How did you deal with that whole situation where everything sort of personally, professionally just changed?
So thanks, Atit, for the question. Definitely, the first reaction was, "Oh my God!" Right? No doubt about it. But I'll tell 2 stories. So when the pandemic started, I was with PayPal, one of the largest digital payments company, right? So we started seeing early signals in late 2019 when we had an impact on our China business. But nobody imagined the scale at which that impact would be. And come Q1 of 2020, things started kind of shaping up. And the first and foremost thing that the whole organization came together was the people, right? How do we make sure our people are safe, taken care of, they have productive environment wherever they can work and stuff like that. But very quickly we looked at our merchants, right? We have millions of merchants whose livelihood depended on PayPal, right? To get the money to them for the business they are doing. And guess what? A lot of businesses, they were seeing a lot of refunds, chargebacks, those kind of things, right? And their money was stuck. So PayPal had to do a lot of things to reimagine the risk models to make sure their money does not get stuck and made sure that merchants' livelihoods are not impacted. But then also, given the digital payments, everything offline was shut. The business was booming like crazy, right? And at that time, what we did was that we identified 10 key moonshots. And the whole company came together and said, this is what we want to focus on, and this is what we will do, right? Now, switching gears, Airbnb, where I was not there during the initial stages, but when I look back, it was one of the most tough time, right? For a travel company, very young company, and the entire business almost came to standstill, right? And it means there were a lot of press about it that Airbnb is dead, right? We had to, at that time, take one of the most difficult decisions to let go of 25% of our workforce, right? But the way it was done, that became a case study in itself. The letter that our CEO, Brian, wrote to our employees, means that was something that showed empathy. And from there, towards the end of 2020, a travel company in the midst of a pandemic, we went public, right? So it was the resilience and the way we came together as a company and the way our whole stakeholders supported us. I think that helped us navigate through some of the pandemic.
Right, the central theme being the empathy and the fact that you have to be in action. You have to sort of, keep solving for it.
I would say empathy and the leadership.
The leadership.
The leadership, making sure not only you set the right vision, you show empathy, but you get everybody around you as well.
Got it. Darren, how was it for you?
So, when the pandemic started, I was running the international division, and it was interesting to watch because I would say there's many phases to the pandemic. We talk about the new normal, but the new normal didn't happen to the end. Right. And I could see, in the service industry and some of the office people, the new normal came faster than our manufacturing sites. But when it started in China in late 19, I didn't believe it. I said, oh, here we are with the bird flu again. Right. Because we went through that about 5 years earlier and we lost business in that region. So, but then it just kept escalating. And one day they came and shut down our factory. So the first question, and similar to you, is I said, wow, what's the safety of our people and their families? What can we do to make sure they're safe and healthy? So that was the first thing. But the second thing also was, what do we do about our channel partners? Their livelihoods depend on our production schedules. So we went through many phases, but it was interesting because each region within the world had different rules. So when you talk about uncertainty, you didn't know if you could run your factory today or you had to shut it down. So as we went through the world, we were doing different things. But in that, we came together as a team around the world. We set up what we call COVID czars. Mm-hmm. We empowered the people at the facility to make decisions at the local level. They didn't have to come up through a hierarchical system. We pushed the decision-making down to them. We put people in charge. Every 2 days, we'd get together and have a report out to the world. Listen to each other. They learn from each other because, again, this was a progression across the whole globe. And as each one learned from the other, they would put those processes in place before the action would actually happen within their country.
Got it.
So some of the other things we did is we had to, similar to what they did at Airbnb, we made the edict that we would not lay off anyone. However, we asked our employees to take a vacation for 3 days. All the senior leaders took a 10 to 15% pay cut for that year. It was a decision that everybody made for the health of the company and the health of our employees, because again, they were our most important asset at that time. We didn't want to lose anyone. Manufacturing-wise, it was, again, because each state, each province, each city had their own rules, we didn't know if the factory could run. Sometimes we'd get notice about 3 days ahead that they were going to shut us down. Our factories were able to actually pick up and move complete lines of our manufacturing of our durable goods to a whole nother city within a week. And we were up and running, serving our customers from a different location. We even moved some of our factories into our distribution centers. We moved out inventory and put lines in there to continue to roll our products off the line.
Oh, wow.
So the key thing on this is try and get the decisions at the right level. Don't make it hierarchical because you don't have time in times of uncertainty to do that.
Well, that's amazing. I think so. What I'm hearing is that you're solving for freedom in terms of decision making, and at the same time, you're ensuring the information flows rapidly so that the experiences and the learnings are shared. People are not repeating the same experiments. At the same time, on the point, people have those options of figuring things out, having that trust, in them to figure things out.
Exactly.
Latha, I'm coming to you last on this. So, and automotive has again, we've seen a lot of ups and downs, more downs recently. But how's it been for you? Maybe not just when COVID hit, but the last 2-3 years, in terms of just dealing with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that the capability of a leader can be measured by how they deal with crisis. Yeah. And if you really look at the COVID situation, this was one of the real textbook case study equivalent, right? Because everything went heavy. I would say that I was also caught off guard. At that point of time, I was working with Bosch, and again, we are a automotive R&D, and currently also I'm in the automotive R&D space. And it was initially difficult because we are not a software or an IT company, and I think we had some similar issues like Darren mentioned, that it was really not possible to shift everything home. So we had to do a lot of remote testing, and the equipment had to be used, and a whole lot of challenges. And it was, I would say in the beginning, it was quite tough to balance between the customer expectations and the employee expectations, as well as the safety and the health. So, but it was clear for us that employees at the center. We had quite good business continuity plans, and we run a leadership transformation program on how they deal with the hybrid work environment. We actually set up a lot of technology, lot of technologies to look at how can we do remote testing.
Got it.
And we kind of leveraged the ecosystem across the globe. We had centers across the globe. We leveraged, we supported each other, and I think this was a perfect example how human beings can collaborate with each other and still make things happen. But I would say the leader, there were a couple of learnings for me. The first one I would say is that you don't need to have 100% perfect solutions and answers for everything. Right. It's really not possible in this situation. And sometimes we put a little bit of extra pressure on ourselves, thinking that we are responsible and we need to have this 100% solution, perfect solution. Right. Now I understand that that's not really required in life. Yeah. The second learning is that, everybody says it's lonely at the top, but it's not lonely. I think what we used is the ecosystem. We used a lot of collaboration across industry. I think Zinnov was also a wonderful platform who gave us a lot of insights from the industry. We learned from each other, and I think a whole lot of COVID warriors who came up from the different elements, and I think this was really good. And the last but not the least, I think in engineering industry we always talked about IQ and EQ. And I would say the new dimension which got added for me is adaptability quotient, and that is going to be the mantra for us if we have to survive for the future as well.
No, absolutely, and it's wonderful you spoke about rethinking solution, coaching people, a lot of communication, but also as leaders giving permission to yourself to fail at times, to not always be right. I think it's super critical because even as individuals, emotions are running high, and you're trying to solve for everybody, and you have to solve for yourself also. I'm glad you touched on collaboration and ecosystem, KSV, NASSCOM, right? Very central to the ecosystem. Would love to get your perspective outside in, and I think I would maybe touch on two parts, right? One is to what Latha said, right, where everybody came together, there was a lot of sharing of learnings, best practices, but also when you're dealing with this uncertainty, your environment matters a lot, and we're talking about India, we're talking about India stack, right? How do you think those things might have influenced people's reactions and approach?
That was a fantastic question. Is it working?
Yeah, it is.
Fantastic. I'll just build up to what Ashish said. It was first reaction was, oh my God.
Yeah.
We just added two more words, what next? Right? So everyone collaboratively believed that life comes first, livelihood comes second. What needs to be done? Yeah. The good news is Indian tech industry was always known to be very collaborative, one another, etc. Just add stakeholders like government, it just work at action at top gear. Everybody, I remember working with the central government and the state government, the industry, nearly 24/7, every day for 4 days. See what next. Every workshop we did. The primary consideration was that if we stop, the world stock exchanges stop. If we stop, if the tech industry stops, the banking industry stops, the healthcare industry stops, the retail industry stops. What do we do? Nothing stops. Every commitment needs to be fulfilled. That's the only mantra everybody had. Let's work collaboratively. Nothing fails. Nothing fails. When the spirit came in, we have to succeed for the world to succeed. At the same time, maintaining life and livelihood, it just worked in top gear. Everybody realized tech is the power behind it. Every state government declared IT as an essential service. Central government relaxed the condition of working from home. So completely, suddenly, the IT it was largely getting delivered from about 8 locations, got delivered within a span of pandemic from 325 locations. Touchwood, power sector was good. The Wi-Fi was even better. Not a single failure. Everything just well. Imagine this, but for IT, but for technology, even from a government perspective, could we have administered 2 billion vaccine in 15 months' time? The tech became the nerve center on which everybody worked. The entire system collaborated. The impact of this is the industry grew the fastest. Industry grew the fastest at 15.6% in 21-22. We added $30 billion revenue in 1 year, highest ever in the last 30 years of the industry. We added about 500,000 new jobs. Essentially, we got the point they said, the resilience and the trust, what the industry earned. That is what we have learned in the last 3 years, that when a push comes to a shove, we can rise up, we can earn the trust, we can meet with confidence, with tech being our supreme strength.
Got it. So trust is paramount importance, but as you're solving for these situations, I think it's important in that sense to not only look at yourself or your teams or your organizations, but at the ecosystem also. It's almost like a systems approach. You leverage it, you contribute to it, but you also sort of, bank on them in terms of supporting it. There's always this layer, right, in terms of, since we're in the corporate world, and both of you spoke about it, you're in different companies, Ashish, Latha, right? You moved companies into new roles while all of this was going on. Everybody's trying to make sense of it. And just when we think we are coming out of it, we have this whole recessionary story happening, right? So we are at a new cross-section, right? So I would maybe break this question for both of you into two parts, right? One is, how was the transition like? How did you manage that particular shift, right? And number two, today, given the current circumstances, what were those learnings that you're trying to apply and sort of, solve for the future in terms of the next steps or in terms of preparing yourself better, the companies better?
Yeah. So maybe I'll go.
Ashish, yeah.
So, changing job means prior to moving to Airbnb, I had spent 10 years at PayPal. And once you work 10 years, means it becomes part of you, right? Who you are and things like that. And then while I was considering moving the jobs, not only it was the pandemic issue, it was moving into a travel company during a pandemic, right? That was another this thing. But good thing is when I spoke to a lot of people, a lot of leadership globally, and their vision for India, why they wanted to expand into India, and the overall culture of Airbnb, I think it's a lot been said about it. That made it easier. So the day I joined, it never felt like I'm moving into a new organization. Because I had already met with so many people. I already understood the vision and the right reasons, not the cost reasons, but the innovation reasons, the scale reasons why we wanted to be in India. So that made it very comfortable. Now, in terms of talking about some of the things we are doing during this time to stay relevant, the first one is focus, right? Prior to pandemic, naturally Airbnb was trying a lot of different things because we wanted to solve for end-to-end experience for our guests. But one thing that taught us is focus on few things, our core business, which is our homes business, right? And in the last 2 years, the amount of innovation and the new features that we have rolled out, we have never been able to do that at that pace earlier. Very recently, during our summer release, we're trying to change the way people travel. Means we have all, anytime we travel, first thing is, where do you want to go, right?
Yeah.
We're changing that to, what do you want to experience, right? What are the kind of things you want to do? So it's fundamentally we're trying to change, and that has come in because of the focus. The second thing I would say is, how do you build strong connects with your stakeholders, right? In our case, the communities that we service, the hosts and the guests, and means no better example to share but what happened recently with the Russia-Ukraine war, right? Means suddenly Ukraine, there were tens of thousands of our hosts who had a lot of bookings, and suddenly they didn't, means everything, there was a war. So what Airbnb took a decision is that if your booking is getting canceled, Airbnb will take care of it. Don't worry. And on the other side, people who were displaced, Airbnb announced that up to 100,000 people, we will host them in properties outside of Ukraine, wherever it is safe, right? But what it did was, slowly magic started happening. When Airbnb made that announcement, people said, okay, we will not cancel our reservation, even if we are not going, right? So that the hosts are not impacted. And not only that, people started just booking dummy properties in Ukraine, and it made a form of a donation. And this went viral, right? So this is how you kind of, when you build that strong connection with the community, they know that there is an organization that will take care of you, and that's what builds sustainability. And the last piece is the global expansion, right? Means during the pandemic, we opened up a tech center here in Bangalore. That's a great kind of example of what we see in India, and diversifying our talent pool across the globe, being closer to our communities. And this is the markets that we will grow in the future, and we needed to be closer to that.
Got it.
Some of these things helped us.
Yeah. How are you, Latha?
Yeah, I think a little bit similar experience. Yeah, I joined Continental 11 months back, and after 17 years of stint in another automotive R&D. So the first day I go to office, and then I sit on my chair, I exactly wanted to ask what you asked, right? Oh my God, what next? Take a deep breath. That was the first thing, in mind, because you have an empty office. My predecessor had left long back, so I did not have a handover. My supervisor sits in Germany, and then I have a 4,500 people organization where hardly 20, 30 come to work. This was the situation. But I think it was really good because I learned the importance of stakeholder management much more than what I have done in the last 30 years. I do use this time to understand the culture of the organization, to also build trustful relationships, a lot over team, But one good thing I did is in the middle of the pandemic, I took a risk. I got a special permission and then I traveled to Germany in the peak of the pandemic for 2.5 weeks, which was well appreciated by my counterparts there because they felt that I'm so serious to make this relationship. And everybody at the automotive board level was available for all meetings. So that actually was a real good step in making the relationships. From there it began, and I think now the access to all levels is there, and they also value the India Center. The second thing, what I did is also that we were getting our infrastructure ready. We just moved into the new building, and we used this pandemic time to set up a world-class infrastructure because the employees were not there. There was no disturbance of work, so we kind of ramped up the entire thing, including the test facilities and everything. So this was something which was positive. At the same time, since I was going into the office every day, I could also draw some of my next levels and other things. So we did not have to force people to come to office. And as I mentioned, it's an engineering company. We can't do everything from home. So I think we kind of brought in a culture where we have much more. We did not have to really declare a hybrid model, but I think people started coming in and we kind of adjusted. I would say this adaptability quotient worked quite a bit. And there was also quite a lot of innovations also which came up in the last month, which was also surprising because I personally at some point of time believed that people have to really sit together to innovate. But I think a lot of paradigm shifts happened, I would say, and I would say incredible learning in the in the last few months. And the mantra is always communicate, whether it is required. There's nothing called over-communication, I'm realizing. I think communicating to all stakeholders, employees, the board, etc., to give the trust on the India Center and the leadership is really required. So I think these are some of the learnings, plus some of the things which Ashish already mentioned.
Got it. Darren, I'll come to you, right? So both of them spoke about 10 years, 17 years in a previous company, 35 years in a single company, multiple crises, right? What's been the approach that you have taken in that organization in terms of coming and dealing with all these crises, but sort of becoming stronger with each one? I would maybe say building the muscle to handle uncertainty. What's been that journey like?
So it's, uncertainty. You ask yourself, how do you plan for something unplannable, right? But there is ways to do that. We take the approach annually that we look at our business model and we try and find the black swans. Try and identify those potential disruptions in your business processes or your business model. So we sit down with groups of employees and kind of map that out and say, what could go wrong? How do you mitigate it? And then put plans in place accordingly. So we would go out and, it could be a geopolitical situation, could be a technology disruption for us, it could be a security risk, a natural disaster. So we would put those plans in place and then have mitigation around that. So you can accept the risk, right? You could mitigate the risk, you could eliminate it 100%, or transfer the risk. All those things are possible. So we put plans around it, and it really helped us during COVID because, for instance, at our manufacturing plants, we had natural disaster plans in place already. This wasn't a natural disaster, but it was the same thing. We had to move that and pick up production and move it somewhere else quickly. So all that planning, even though it might not be exactly for the application, does pay off because your team is ready to react to it. They know that you've already tried to reduce the risk as much as possible, but you also have plans in place to attack that uncertainty.
Got it. I think I'll use another piece. So in defense, they end up saying this a lot, saying the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So uncertainty or not, planning always helped, forethought always helped. And I think all three of you brought out one very important point, focus, right? That clarity. So a simple, single mission which is there, which you can align people on. You keep solving for trust through communication, through stakeholder management. And fundamentally what you're also doing, Latha, to your point, is also trying to change your own operating model, right? So if the current scenario doesn't allow you to build that stakeholder relationship, if it requires you to sort of go there, with that extra effort, then do it. You change your own operating model. Kesvi, taking your help to summarize this, as somebody again who has viewpoint on the ecosystem, what's your view? What's changing in terms of how GCOs are trying to, deal with uncertainty and prepare for, future?
No, just to build up on the previous point, given the last 2 years, COVID otherwise, it did get a lot of us individually, personally, as a team, the word of empathy that you talked about. I do not know how many of you remember the work from home started, there was a lot of WhatsApp jokes, what is happening, what is not going, etc. Camera suddenly working home was different problem, etc. People started empathizing, what does it really work to do? I think one factor which will help us grow forward to any other, this is not the end of the pandemic. This is not the end of the disaster. Perhaps many more are likely to come. But our understanding that we can confidently stay ahead, find the solution is one which I said is possible, A. And B, again, as a country, if I talk about, perhaps we, especially people in Bangalore, 2 years back, we forgot about the traffic challenges, etc. Right? Again, when things are coming back to normal, it is surfacing out. And I still recollect when Bangalore people, the government of Bangalore, Karnataka, did announce people in the Bellandur road, please don't come to office for 2 years, went up in arms. Said, no, allow us to come in arms. Now they're saying, please declare the thing, don't come into office, etc. The fact which I'm saying is, I'm repeating what I said earlier, that our confidence is our strength, that is our technology is strength. We can beat any odds with technology on our side. That's a confidence we have, empathy with us, a trust is, etc. With technology, we're going to beat everything that's come on the way. We are there to win.
So we keep building the tech and we keep building our EQ on that particular sense. I think we have 5 minutes, so I'll maybe go for one last set of questions, which is there. Long-term view, right? In terms of, you spoke about what you're doing right now. But given all of this, in terms of, what KFC just mentioned, uncertainty is going to be there, right? So how are you going about preparing your teams, your reportees, in terms of handling uncertainty, right? Because in a way, you also want them to get stronger. So how are you building the organization? We'll maybe, go across the group once. Ashish, we'll start with you.
Sure, maybe I can go first. Yeah. So again, means some of the things Latha mentioned, means in future, it's going to be the adaptability quotient, right? So how do you build that adaptability? The few things that we do is, one is making sure learning is constant, right? For everybody, and it starts at the top, making sure you spend time getting people to office to make sure we have those sessions where people can learn together, collaborate, and stuff like that. I think that's pretty big. Other thing that personally I have followed and which has helped me is a lot of horizontal growth, right? Means a pandemic has taught us that you need to be able to work in any situation, in any kind of role. So over the last few years, I have done from business operations to strategy to new business development, sales, and back into the technology organization, right? So I think that gives you a broader perspective, and it also helps you in career advancement, which is not just vertical, but also horizontal, so that the learning continues.
Got it.
So I think some of these things will definitely help people kind of adapt to the evolving situation. You've seen various points of view. You can empathize better in others' shoes and stuff like that.
So empathy, EQ, of course, but from a skill set perspective, also solve for adaptability.
Solve for adaptability.
A T-shape. Darren?
Let me add to that a little bit. I think we as leaders need to instill trust in our people, right? We have to trust them, they have to trust us. You need to work on that every day. And trust is a hard thing to keep, right? And it's a hard thing to earn. But once you have that, you can trust your employees to do the job. And you can build the bench strength. And I would encourage all the leaders out here to make sure you look at your bench strength and train those lower level employees to be ready for these situations. So how do you train them? You put them in situations. You take them out of their comfort zone that they're in today. Like you were saying, you rotate jobs.
Yeah.
You put them in places that they're not used to. You take an engineer, you put them into a sales role for a while and put them in front of customers. Get them out of their comfort zone so when uncertainty happens, they're more comfortable with that uncertainty.
So let them experience it. It's not a classroom teaching. It's like
situational experiences, yes.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah. Latha?
So I would say that whether it is good time or bad times or COVID times, talent is the key. And I think we have found different ways and means of developing talent now. I think we should continue to do that. And the second thing is that earlier we used to talk about local for local, India local for local. But I think now we are talking local for global.
Right.
And I think most of the headquarters, companies, they are also accepting that India can do global projects, global roles, global COEs and other things. And this got concretized during COVID because nothing was disturbed from India during COVID. So there's an enormous amount of trust and confidence that the headquarters has on India now. So kind of cash on it, continue on that. And last but not the least, as you mentioned, to have compassionate leadership, empathy, and always keep people at the center, because then only business and technology can be there, but people as the center, passionate people as the center. So how do you really create them? How do you actually enable them? And that is the biggest leadership task, and that is our responsibility.
Got it. KSP, is there anything the leaders are not doing that they should think about?
I would say we did demonstrate by the ample. We did demonstrate collaboratively we win. So I would ask each of the leaders, go beyond the role, what you do. How could you collaborate with the ecosystem to create new solution that is possible, right? I repeat, during COVID time, the enormous support that you got from the industry, whether it's the CSR or outside to solve the healthcare issue, etc. requires A, collaborate. B, I do not know it's politically correct for me to say, I somehow get a feeling many of the GCC leaders have gone to the stability in their life. Please shake yourself up. Shake yourself up. Don't be complacent. Just put the egg more. The opportunity, world of opportunities, what the COVID has thrown open as a country is enormous. Everything is interconnected. Everything is intelligent. Everything has got self-persona, right? Everything is going to throw data. Don't wait for what your parent enterprises tell you to do. Just aspire for more. We have demonstrated with aspiration can win. Just aspire for more. Don't be complacent is only mantra I'll say. Just stay together. Aspire more. We'll win.
Awesome. I'll maybe, we'll wrap up the session on that particular piece. So aspire more, never stop. Keep that focus, keep building communication, confidence, trust. Make systems intelligent and people more emotionally, aware and to be able to participate. I guess that's the central part in terms of trying to deal with, uncertainty. We as humans become emotionally more aware, and systems, the tech becomes more intelligent, which is there. Thank you so much for joining us for this particular panel, and thank you for the audience for your attention. I'm sure we'll have the tea now. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.